Yo, what's cracking like people? Just got another discussion here, which is naturally an opinion of mine, but I'm actually vastly more interested in your thoughts on this, or perhaps additional insights. Basically, I'm looking for answers. So, recently, Eurogamer had an interview with Bluepoint Games. These are the guys who've done the recent and stunning looking Shadow of the Colossus HD remake, but in the past they've also been involved in a number of other bog standard HD ports like the God of War collection on the PlayStation 3, Metal Gear Solid collection, the original Shadow of the Colossus and Ico HD collection, and the Nathan Drake Uncharted collection, to name a few. Not so long ago, I done a video on my thoughts about HD remakes after seeing what this studio had done with Shadow of the Colossus, and how I expressed for most legendary old games that deserve a remake of this level, how I'd like to see this treatment more often for sure. So if you haven't done so already, please check out that video and let me know your own thoughts. I'll try and put one of those funky little bubbles at the top of the screen, for that video. But going back to the article, Bluepoint Games states they are in fact working on another game now, and not a new game, but another remake, and one that is greater in scope than Shadow of the Colossus. This got me thinking, as well as discussing with the FGR elites, who are not only the greatest Street Fighter Alpha 3 players in the world, but are some of my closest friends. We discussed exactly what this new game could be, and it kind of led up into an area which highlights some weak points, I feel, at least in my eyes. Now, for this discussion, we are initially assuming that Bluepoint Games are working on another Sony exclusive, once again purely based off their previous output. So this then naturally led me to ask what other Sony first-party exclusives are bigger in scope than Shadow of the Colossus. Well, at first I racked my brain, and honestly couldn't think of any. Eventually games like the original Killzone came to mind, as a game that could perhaps be brought back in, say, Killzone Shadowfall's graphical engine, or graphical fidelity, or something. Then I thought of The Legend of Dragoon, a cult classic RPG on the PlayStation 1. But there are a few issues with that one, I feel. One, it had pre-rendered backgrounds, so if they were to remake it and still stay true to the original, like they did with Shadow of the Colossus, then indeed that game engine would have to be probably completely redone. Not out of the question, but certainly in the realms of being bigger in scope than Shadow of the Colossus. But then my friends pointed out that yes, it was a good RPG. I actually own it myself, but would its cult classic status be enough to warrant such a remake? I'm not too convinced about that. Then we started to run a little dry, already on possible Sony first-party games. Siphon Filter, perhaps, the Getaway, or Primal. TV. Racking our brains, it highlighted one major thing we kind of already knew about Sony and their first-party offerings. Back in the day, although they had good games in the past, Sony's strengths never fully laid with their first-party offerings. As for me, I need to be honest here. Outside of Ico, I honestly can't think of another old Sony first-party exclusive game that I'd now love to see get the Shadow of the Colossus treatment. Sony's strengths lay with courting third parties, as I said, to create exclusives for their platforms. And when you think back to classic PlayStation exclusives on the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, the vast majority of games are actually from other companies, where Sony either helped fund or paid for the exclusive rights, or sometimes the company just decided to have the game exclusive on that platform. Now, I'm not here chewing out Sony for grabbing those old school exclusives, the ones that they did on the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. Hell, I actually miss the amount of original, diverse and exclusive content they had back then on their platforms. It's something I've always moaned about, going into the latter half of the PS2 era, and certainly into the PS3 and PS4 PS4 era, and in terms of them being publishers and getting those games. And if you don't believe me, you can just do a simple Wikipedia check, and you'll see the amount of Sony published and developed games whittled down greatly after the PlayStation 1. But going back to topic, I'm asking you all, what PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 Sony first-party exclusive games can you think of that you'd love to see a Shadow of the Colossus style of HD remake for? Because me, I'm struggling to think of any outside of Ico, but seeing as Bluepoint has already said that this new remake is greater in scale than Shadow of the Colossus, Ico seems to me, in my mind, to be ruled out already because it is a smaller game. Perhaps we'll see when I say smaller game, I mean at least in scale from what I can tell that they're going on about, compared to the size of the Colossus to the play areas in Ico. Perhaps we'll see a G-Police remake, which I believe was Psygnosis, or maybe even an Omega Boost remake, which was actually a really good shooter from Polyphony Digital, who we all know is famed for Gran Turismo. And Omega Boost seems like a strange game from such a studio, right? But it reminds me of the god of the Crom tier shoot 'em up on the PlayStation 1 that is Einhander. A great game made by Square Enix, or Squaresoft as they were known back then. I actually still call them Squaresoft. I guess remakes of G-Police and Omega Boost could be seen as bigger in scope than Shadow of the Colossus, but once again, at least from my point of view, these games, are probably unlikely, or maybe G-Police is more likely than Omega Boost, which is very niche and very unknown. But yeah, I don't want to completely trash Sony first party here, not at all, but many of their first party games from the old days, are still good. And like I said, what makes up a Sony machine is more the third party exclusives of which from the past are still great, and there'll be a wealth of those I'd love to see get some good treatment on. So let's try and end on a high note. If you can't think of any first party Sony IPs that might get the Shadow of the Colossus treatment, what other classic Sony exclusive would you like from Bluepoint Games? A strange one for me first, but I think I'd love for the original Tenchu Stealth Assassins to be remade, a game by Acquire, who were mostly associated with Sony. Don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily my first choice or the most requested title to be made by others, but if they rework those traditional Japanese buildings, those levels, the character models of Riki, Maru and Ayame, and put in some beautiful lighting and shadow effects, etc., whilst retaining the original game for the most part, man, I'd be in ninja heaven. But perhaps it's just me wanting a new Tenchu game that is similar to the first, which by now is obvious that I do indeed love, and the soundtrack to that game is just Crom tier, people. One of the best soundtracks on the PlayStation 1 without a doubt. And speaking of the soundtrack, I have it in my collection, and I shall upload it shortly for your listening pleasure if you feel like it. And a second would be Ridge Racer Type 4. Still the best in the series, and still absolutely incredible racer. And once again, the soundtrack to that game is Crom tier, and it's never been topped in a series since, in my opinion. And I mean, look at the Ridge Racer Type 4 on the screen now. This is a PlayStation 1 game, and as you can see, it still looks phenomenal. But there's no doubt that you could get these backgrounds and the car models and the tracks to look obviously even more stunning with today's technology. Anyway, let's wrap this up here, people. This isn't me completely tuning out Sony, like I said. Don't go off on one. It's something I could easily do. But it's just me pointing out that what else could you give the Shadow of the Colossus treatment to out of their own personal library of first-party exclusives, and even what do you think Bluepoint could be working on as a next remake? As for me, my dream remake of Shadow of the Colossus standard goes beyond Sony. Way back to 1998, the greatest year in gaming, people. Back to the time before Breath of the Wild, where this game was my all-time personal favorite video game ever. Now that, people, Crom, that would be heart attack material right there for me. It'd be beyond a dream come true. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching, and I very much look forward to your comments below. Peace.